has been coaching and motivating and encouraging people. It's funny because my story actually started. So when earliest memory I can remember, I was involved in sports. I did some plays. I very much leaned into being a performer, probably overachiever at some point, where we kind of like went full circle, and I had to kind of learn how to unbecome to become who I truly am. But I say all that to say is, in 2008, I started rapping and thought my life was going to be, I'm the next Lecrae, next Lil Wayne. Like I thought I was going to be a rapper, and I poured heart
All
and
right,
soul.
drop it. Let's do it.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
So yeah, I poured heart and soul into that from 2008 until 2018. So about 10 years. And over that span of time, I recorded 300-ish songs, somewhere in there. I put out a lot of content. I just put in the reps, essentially. I definitely wasn't the greatest when I started, but I always was a proponent of being resourceful and finding a way. And that was a lot of what I did. And then in around 2016, I started working for a online ministry. I was doing all their YouTube stuff. I was making lead magnets, writing emails, doing all the SEO, all the video editing. I was basically their media team for about 4 years. But somewhere along those lines, we get to about 2018, and I'm very big in my faith. And I really felt like, as I deepened my faith in my walk with Jesus, I really felt like he was asking me to lay down the thing that I had found complete identity in, which was rapping. And of course, around that time, I started rapping for God, but really not with God, I guess you could say. So
you know who T-Bone is? I gotta ask.
Yeah, T-Bone. Yeah,
he's a friend of mine.
He is. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
We met in an airplane, and he that was so cool. That dude is so talented.
Yeah, he's super talented. But yeah, so I got to this that was kind of the turning point for me, is 2018. I felt like the Lord was asking me to lay down the thing I found my whole identity in. And it was in that moment. And it's funny because in 2016 was when I started working for this ministry, and she was very like motivational, personal development, Bible based. So it was really interesting to hear that perspective, because I've always been kind of in those circles, but really being a part of a team of someone doing that and leading from stages and whatnot. Like we did she has like a business conference once a year, and one year we had Les Brown, and it was amazing to be side stage during a Les Brown talk. It was such special times in my life. But I say all that to say is, we got to 2018, and I felt like the Lord was really guiding me out of rapping. And at first I was like, what do you mean, God? Like I wrestled with it. Like I was mad. I was like, I put heart and soul. And the last song that I made up before he said this was my best performing song. Like I collaborated with some people. It got thousands of streams. It was doing well. And there was that potential for it to go to who knows where. Finally, after all the plowing and all the sowing, I felt like harvest time was coming. Huge. But the Lord was like, do you trust me in this? And I was like, well, I mean, you're God, and I'm sure you probably know a lot better than I do. And thankfully, hindsight, I see the beauty in all of it. Because if I would have been promoted to stages when I was in that space, personally, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, I would have crumbled under pressure. And we see plenty of people, celebrities, we see even unfortunately here lately, religious leaders fall from grace. And I feel like it was really God's divine protection in that moment. But also he had a different route for me. And I feel like hindsight, about 2020, we had our son, our first child. We had our son in 2020.
Congratulations.
And it was like right in the middle of the craziness of lockdowns and the great panini, the great pandemic. And it was so interesting for me, because it was like all of my life I identified in the doing, not the being. And it took like the whole world shutting down, because initially I was like, cool, I can work from home. So then I can do the podcast. I can still figure out things, help serve more at my church. Even though we're not in person, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff I could help with. So I was running, and I finally hit that burnout, like most of us do when we're running without true direction and clarity and vision. Right. And I hit that spot, and I felt like, again, the Lord was asking me, are you willing to leave the job and just focus on being present, serving at your local church, and being present as a stay-at-home dad. And again, I'm like, what do you mean, God? Like, I'm making a decent, secure salary. You know, I'm doing work that seems to be good. And again, it was that moment of shifting more. And it was in that I only had like taking care of this human being, which is crazy in itself. And thankfully my wife is amazing, and she has a very stable job as a hairstylist. And thankfully financially the brunt wasn't tough. It wasn't awful. So it seemed like there was a bit of security in that turn, but also, I mean, it's a big faith step again. So I stepped out, started taking care of my son. And it was funny that becoming a father helped me learn how to be a son. And I didn't realize that. And much more than that is there was so much beauty in all of this. And when I think about that season, it started in the 2018 when I laid down a certain aspect that I thought was my identity, and then it began more chiseling. And I'll mention a little bit later that the story I felt like I was drawn to that really paints that picture. But I'll say all that to say is towards the end of I want to say like around 2021, after we've had our son for about a year, I felt like the Lord was saying, okay, you're ready to try to figure out something else. I also was getting bored out of my mind, not doing something, because as someone who's creative and doing something, I was like, what can I do? Because I was still kind of doing the podcast, but again, it was something that I had to put down in that season. And I picked it back up again, and I found someone that was doing this online coaching thing. It was the first time I had really thought about it and heard about it, and really thought, okay, we can try to grow something with this. So around that time, I started coaching. I had a handful of free clients that were within the program I was in, really kind of figuring out and navigating what I could help people with. And we started landing in on this idea of, I feel like there's a lot of Christian business owners, men, leaders, and they've succeeded in the business side of things. But how many of you know that you can win in one area and be completely failing in the other? And we can major in the minors, and it can be so great to sit there and make a ton of money and be wealthy, but not at the expense of our soul, not at the expense of our marriage or our kids. And that's really what I've kind of zeroed in on when it comes to my clients. And it looks like, so I help my friend with his
Dustin Wallace.
Yeah, no, that's my government name, Dustin Wallace. But I help a friend of mine. He has a construction company, and I was posting for him on his construction company. But it looks like the last few posts actually did not.
That's all right.
So those memes for like a random construction company you see is actually my background of social media. I was helping a friend of mine that had a awesome construction company. So that's funny. I was like, man, I'm glad I see that now. Oh, cool.
Optimize as we go.
Exactly. I love that. We're already winning.
That's right, man. Well, man, you've unpacked quite a bit for me. The one quote that really stood out above everything else too, that really, I mean, I can take away from this and like I'm going to be using too, is how the reality of becoming a father helped me become a son. As a father of four, that resonates so much. And to all the visionaries out there listening in, man, you carry this wonderful energy. You got a tone and a cadence about you that just is super authentic, super well practiced and authentic. I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, is that you can be articulate and intentional and be super truthful and centered too. You could talk about a million things. You choose to talk about incredibly deep realities that resonate. My last couple of years put me in a position. God put me in a position to where I kind of felt like I was stuck in a dark hole. And I told my sister one day, I said, the great thing about being in a dark hole is I can't screw anything up. I'm just, God knows where I'm at. He obviously knows what I need to be focused on. And so it's okay. And, the seed, right? The seed gets shoved down into a dark hole, and has to get watered. And it takes a while before it actually comes to the surface and gets to see the light of day. And it gathers these super strong roots first. So I'm very grateful as well for the adversities that I've gone through, the
Definitely.
trials, the things that have shifted the direction of where I'm going. And I don't pretend to know where God wants me to go in the future.
Yeah.
But everything that I went through, the goods, the
Mhm.
bads, the uglies, that have all contributed to, as you said, learning to be the son, learning to be, and not just be stuck with all the doing that can distract. So you've had resources help you along the way, Red. What are 3 resources you recommend for other visionary leaders out there?
Man, so good. All right, so 3, I might tag a little short 4th. As you were speaking of what you were speaking, it reminded me of another book that was paramount to my where I was at in my journey. But I'll go quick on the 3 that I do have, and I'll say the first one is going to be the Bible, obviously. I mean, it is the only book that when you read it, it reads you, and it's living, and it's always going to work on you more so than any self-help book out there, any of those, which they're great. And I'm all for learning and growing. And at the same time, it's the only book that I've found where the author really sits with you and you can have a personal relationship with the author as you read it. It's reading you. And I could go on for forever, but I'll keep it short and sweet with that. And then I would say the second resource would be finding the right mentors, coaches, and community. And I didn't just say a blanket statement of mentors, coaches, and community. I said the right one. And how do you know if they're the right one? They're going to be the one that truly have your best interest. And they can see things that you don't always see. And I think that I have such a beautiful, I've been blessed with the best in my church community, like my pastors and some of the leaders and mentors that I've had have seen what I didn't see. Cause I mean, when I can remember when I walked into our church, it was 2011, and I was insecure yet prideful, little Christian rapper, wannabe rapper. Probably, if you've seen the movie Malibu's Most Wanted, yeah, that was probably me. And I remember asking that, like, we had a small group the first time I went to any kind of like youth event. I think I was like 18, so I was fresh out of high school, and I walked into a youth event, and there was like a little small group, and I asked the pastor, like, first time ever meeting. The pastor was husband and wife, and it was the wife, and I was like, what do I got to do to be on that stage? Literally, first time talking to someone, I'm asking, what can I do to be on that stage? Ridiculous. But what she said stuck with me, and she said, if you stay faithful, we'll find a place for you. And I really feel like it was the divine voice of God speaking through her in that moment, because I never left being planted in the local church from that moment. I found myself running sound. I found myself serving. I was stacking chairs. Now, someone who came in with such a pride, I like to look at it this way. I feel like insecurity masquerades around like pride, because if we really dig deep into someone who's very, very prideful, you'll notice that there's a bit of insecurity there. And I can remember thinking back to that time how insecure I was. So I try to be bigger, larger than life to make up for what I felt like I was lacking on the inside. But that's
inferiority complex.
Totally a sidebar of the conversation. But I say all that to say is to keep it back into this idea of resources and mentors, is that with the right mentors and coaches and community in your life, you'll not only go further faster, but you'll be living out who you've been called and created to be. Because I feel like so often we want to go so fast, especially now, microwave generation. Like, we wanted things, Amazon Prime, we wanted it yesterday. It's already late if it's not here. And I feel like there's a beauty in slowing down to speed up. And I feel like when you're surrounding yourself with
those you listening in, you hear how fast he talks, but he still has that appreciation for slowing down to speed up. Right. I see it, dude. I see you, man. Right. Red, keep going.
That's right. So as I say that, it's so important to slow down to speed up. And a lot of times we need those mentors, those coaches, that community to remind us, hey, we're going a little bit faster. We can slow down and be, and I can, and I could go on this forever.
Yeah, we both could. I'm gonna highlight something real fast, because guys, what you are hearing, and if you are feeling, if you are willing to, I feel hope rising. I feel faith. I feel light. Yeah. And I feel one of my favorite emotions, and that's celebration when you talk,
Yeah.
Red. You live by this principle of celebration. I can see it. The person who I heard on stage talk about that was Glenn Morshower, who's a well-known actor. Once somebody looks him up, like, oh yeah, I've definitely seen him before. Best speech I've ever seen, and best motivational talk. And he talks about the value of because I could never get into the hype. I could never get into the excitement,
Yeah.
like all the falsifying basically victories and really being celebration. As soon as he talked about that and was like, stop trying to force it all, like, and we can dive into appreciating what we have and celebrating the goodness that's there. And you are that essence, dude. So thank you. So that's another little resource caveat for you visionaries listening. What's the third, man?
The third. So the third, I'll divide it in half. I'll cheat a little bit. So originally I had Chat GPT. Now, before you come at me in the comments and the
we're about to double down on that one. Go ahead.
That robots are gonna take over the world. Listen, Jesus is still on the throne. But anyways, with that said, I believe that we're in such a beautiful time of having resources at our fingertips. And when I mention Chat GPT, I don't mean
as
it.
you do. I gotta validate you again on this, man. We're gonna validate this right now. For those of you that are watching what's going on here. He talked about mentors, right? And he talked about the Chat GPT. Well, we use Chat GPT after our episodes when people mention things like mentors to create incredible articles. And it does it in 15 minutes.
Come on.
And these are amazing. So this is the article from another mentor and visionary who came on who talked about need for coaches and mentors. And so I put together a little guide on how to interview, attract, onboard, and work with top coaches and mentors, a step-by-step guide. And we show when we create this guide too, exactly what I prompted the chatbot to do so that we could get such quality information. And we always put a disclaimer on here. It's not a reflection of our thoughts, feelings, or strategy. We're not liable for you implementing it. I mean, it can make a mistake, but it is truly magnificent how fast we can get world-class information at our fingertips these days. And it amplifies, if we use that to amplifies all of the goodness we already have within ourselves, dude,
come on. And I love that you mentioned that, because that's literally in the notes when I wanted to mention that. It's a resource, not the source. And it's only going to be able to answer what you give it. So if you're there and you're asking it lame, average, generic questions, you're going to get sent that response. I know I'm sure someone out there has seen someone who's used Chat GPT incorrectly. Absolutely. And you can instantly notice from the verbiage and the excessive use of emojis what's going on. But it's so beautiful when you learn how to work the resource you have. Like I love to go in and hopefully this is not too practical, but I feel like I live in this unique space of the practical and the mindset. So I'll dig in just a little bit for this. But you could go in. So for example, I'm writing my first book. And as someone I've been around authors, my former job, she wrote plenty of books, but also as someone doing it myself, I also want to put my best foot forward. So I've learned things like I can put in a chapter of my book to Chat GPT, and I can be like, act as a best-selling editor in this genre. This is who it's going to be on the shelf next to, and give me feedback. What can I improve?
Bro, I hadn't done it yet. You're ahead of me. I literally, though, 2 days ago, I was like, oh man, when I do my manuscript review, I am definitely using ChatGPT next time to dive in and do that.
So great.
That's
because it's going to give you, it's going to give you an unbiased third party opinion on things. And especially when you give it what to act like. Because if you were to just tell it blankly to do this, it might give you some good
right
results.
Exactly. I was thinking like, here what I was thinking about doing it was with our power marketing funnel. And I was thinking, man, I can't wait to put this into Chat GPT and say, I want your opinion. What all is wrong with this? How can you counter argue with what I've put together and prove to me how many fallacies and errors are in this process, right? I want that. I want to see what it sees that I cannot see. It's not gonna robotically change me. I still have the ability to be me, But I love that heat and that refinement because that's how you create the gold. So yeah,
Definitely.
man, that's
Dude,
huge.
I love that. I love
Okay.
that.
So that's step, is that 3 and 4?
That's 3. So 4 is actually a book that I read not that long ago, and I revisit it from time to time. It's called Anonymous by Alicia Britt Cole. And it's one of those things where sometimes I feel like the Lord, like you mentioned, you felt like you've been in this dark hole.
Yeah.
And to circle back to when you mentioned that, it made me think of that, because when I went into that season of
100%.
just taking care of our son, and I didn't have any obligations other than being a stay-at-home dad, also in the midst of a great pandemic. So even
Yep.
more so, I'm in hiding essentially. And I can remember reading that book, and it was so beautiful to think that even when you feel like you're unseen, and no one's knowing what you're doing or what you're going through, God sees you. And not only that, he's walking with you and he's preparing you. And it goes back to that idea that we're human beings, not human doings. And a lot of times it takes time to be forced into that, because if we're not careful being high achievers, high performers, it's very easy for us to slip into the doing too much. It's that dark side, that shadow of our strengths.
Absolutely.
But I definitely recommend that one if you're in a space of maybe you feel like
Love
you're
that.
not being seen. It's Anonymous by Alicia Britt Cole. But yeah, those are the 4: the Holy Bible, the right mentors, coaches, and community, Chat GPT, and that book called Anonymous.
I was talking to a visionary client this morning, and she's off to the race. She's crushing through her stuff. And so our conversation, you would naturally come in and crush more. Our conversation was about balance.
Come
And
on.
how, like, okay, now you're, imagine you're taking 30-pound bags of soil to your backyard, and you got 100 of them to take for this massive garden you're building. Well, you were carrying 10-pound bags before this. Now you're carrying 30-pound bags, but you've also got a team of people who are carrying bags with you now.
Hmm.
Your role changes,
Yeah.
and you have somebody who's directing the project.
Yeah.
So now you're going to start feeling a couple of things. If you try to carry 130-pound bags the same way you were carrying 110-pound bags, and she's in her 70s, right? So this is really relevant for
Oh
where
yeah.
she's at. You can't do that. You can't go at the same pace, and you need more water than you normally typically have. You need more breaks than you typically have. When you start to do things that are way beyond what you've done in the past, there needs to be more balance. And now, instead of having that imposter syndrome of feeling like I'm doing less, or man, I need to get up and do something, learning to be centered, learning to realize that it's okay to have a different type of lifestyle and to dive more into hobbies and things like that, and to take more time for rest. There's so many paradigm shifts that visionaries we get the opportunity to go through as we're building. And that's one of the essences that I hear about this anonymous reality. And the whole COVID pandemic stuff, I know a lot of people relate to what you're going through, Red. I'm one of those people who sometimes feel like my story is isolated related to that. But if I choose not to isolate myself, right, talk about it, see what's there, it's amazing what happens. And then we get to become mentors too for people who are going through things. My wife and I, at the time, I'm divorced again, we were married the month before COVID in Mexico. And we came back to sell my stuff, moved to Mexico, but we came back the day they shut the border. I was already a single father of 3. We were pregnant. She came over across the border on a visa to just be there for a moment, ended up as an illegal immigrant. And our entire world, we fell into an international black hole that we could not get out of. We literally could not escape it. It was nuts. And the pressures, the adversities, the challenges that we faced because of those circumstances created a refiner's fire that was a very interesting process to battle through. And God and I had our battles, as you mentioned, very, very strong ones. And I found myself in a new position of single father of 4, with 3 kids in one city, 1 kid in another, and me living in somewhere in between at this point, finally. Learning to balance all of that, run a business at the same time, try to figure out how to do it all wasn't the key.
Yeah.
It was learning how to be. It was learning to let go and let God. So I really, really appreciate you bringing it up. I don't talk about that a lot on this podcast. I usually do in my interviews. But brother, we've got a whole world to inspire. Visionaries, whatever you're up against, be prudent. Turn to God. We're not your saviors either, but we are here to help guide, and perhaps there's some resources that we'll have. So we'll be right back. We'll dive in and talk about how do we chisel away at the false narratives when a society is driving us towards false narratives over and over, and how do we also look for our limiting beliefs and maybe get past those too. Red Wallace is obviously a leader in the space of helping us get through that. So we'll be right back. All right, welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Callum. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Callum, founder and CEO of First Class Business, and I am so stoked this week. It feels like my birthday almost every single day that I get to work with my team. There's so many great things that are coming forward, and then we've got these excellent leaders. Like the quality of our leaders since the beginning of the show to now has always been really good, and because of the reach that we're getting, thanks to all of you who listen in and help with the process of subscribing, rating, and promoting it. We got even greater leaders coming in to share even broader visions, and people who are starting to organize things like panel discussions with us. So we got some fun things to come. Today, we've got Coach Red Wallace on, and we're going to be talking about false narratives, limiting beliefs. Before I bring him back on stage, I want to give you guys access to some of the resources you may not have gotten involved with yet. And I highly recommend, in fact, I just invite you, check them out. We got hardtokill.org with Dave Morrow. Dave Morrow is a world-class leader. We very much enjoyed working with him for the past 6 months. He's built this community to help 100,000 veterans lose 2 million pounds collectively, and he's well on his way. I think we need to start upping the number on that goal very, very soon. He's an award-winning podcaster. He spoke at the Military Influencer Expo in Georgia. And if you look up Dave Morrow, Afghanistan, you'll see some of the work that he put in to help try to protect the translators who were affected by the withdrawal. I'm not going to get political on this, but I am going to dive into the fact that our veterans need more support. They need communities where they can get that support. He's opened his doors to those of us who are also civilians. We can now join the Hard to Kill community as well. And he's helped me get back on track with my health, which is huge. I took an 8-year break almost from any responsibilities related to my health. Not a great or wise break to make, especially as a single father. So I'm really grateful for what he's done to help me get back on track health-wise. I'm sure he can help you as well. Then there's opportunities. Opportunities are a homegrown program. I've been trying to build this up for almost 15 years, very slowly. I was pretty scared to build this. Now, as you can see, it is not only just my program, it's a Latino run program. Deanna's the director. Cynthia, who's helping us on this on the screen share, is also a part of the leadership team at Oportunidades de Trabajo para Latinos. They have their own podcast, and their podcast is starting to smoke ours. They've got influencers on that show, Latinos who are inspiring, that have 900,000 plus subscribers on their show. And Luisa, her first interview ever in a podcast format was with Kike Ingles with over 900,000 subscribers. Can you imagine that type of traction when you first start and launch something? So it is really beautiful to see this come together. And we hope that if you know any Latinos who could help out with the process of inspiring more Latinos to get involved, then send them our way. Have them come on our show. And we'd be happy to hear about their stories. We are bridging the economic gap between North America, South America, and rest of the world through this program. And the job training program is absolutely free to any Latinos who come in and want to learn how to be virtual assistants and what we call digital ambassadors. If you're looking to hire virtual assistants, please come and talk to us, because we don't believe in the VA behaviors we see. We call it virtual abuse. I'm tired of seeing entrepreneurs not take any interest in who the people are that they're working with. You start taking care of your people, you start caring about them. It's amazing what happens and what types of results they can drive when you pay attention to what their needs are. So let's do that together. Then there's the Water Project. The Water Project is not something that we have any affiliation with. It's something that truly inspires me, though. They show so much transparency with bringing water to the millions of people who don't have access to one of the most essential resources on our planet, and one that I've taken for granted my entire life. So when I saw how they were doing this like a Kickstarter project, and you can donate like $10, $20 to it, and you can pick which community you actually affect, you then get to see the outcome and the borehole well or the sand dam that they create. That level of transparency, and the fact that they also focus on remote zones of Africa that are very hard to get to, not necessarily like the tourist destinations. So again, I really feel inspired by what they do. This picture right here makes me always remember that these kids celebrate water like my kids celebrate Christmas Day. So my hope is, again, if you're not in a financial position to help out, maybe have a dinner conversation about this with people. Maybe share or tag somebody in this. You never know who you'll inspire to help out. We've got 8 billion people in this world to help out. And why not do everything that we can to help those processes? If you know of a cause that you'd like to see us talk about, or maybe consider, please drop the link to the cause in the chat. Let us come in and chat and dialogue about it and see what we might be able to do together. And without further ado, Coach Red Wallace, welcome to Vision Pros Live.
Thanks for having me, man. What great work you're doing. Like, as you're mentioning that the water project, it's so great to hear another person in this space, not just in it to get rich, which obviously nothing's wrong with wealth.
It's a byproduct. It's a byproduct.
It's a byproduct. But I always say, impact first and income follows. But without,
man, you and Les Brown, how long did you guys hang out? You're full of it's the rapping mentality too.
It is. But yeah,
impact and the income follows.
Yeah,
I like it. I'm writing down all your
impact first, income follows.
Ooh, keep going, man. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just get excited.
No, you're good. I get excited, and to piggyback off of another, man, I love well put together sayings. Like I said this in another podcast today. I really feel like I'm a wordsmith, and there's such a beauty in, and this is a bit of a tangent, so apologies if if I go on too long, definitely cut me off. But there's a beauty in understanding. So there's a pastor named Stephen Furtick, and I heard him say once.
Let's do this too. Let's tie it. I'm gonna make it harder for you.
Yeah.
Like they do with that other rapper who's gone real viral lately, and they give him words. I'm gonna.
Oh yeah. Harry Mack.
Harry Mack. There it is, man. Shout out to Harry Mack. So let's tie that, whatever you're about to say, to false narratives or limiting beliefs.
Perfect. It's going to already tie into it. So like I was saying, there's a pastor named Stephen Furtick, and I heard him say this, and I really have to set the tone. When I heard him say this in a message once, I was actually, this is years ago, I was working at a local Tex-Mex restaurant, and I was a bus boy. I was there early before anyone else was there, early mopping up the place. And I quickly learned that in that time frame of mopping, I have an opportunity because I can focus on anything, because mopping is one of those tasks that you can do kind of like mindlessly as your mind wanders. And at first, of course, me being a rapper back then, I was listening to a bunch of rap, just like thinking of things, like I'd write some songs. But then it shifted when I started really listening to, like, whether it's messages from preachers or other personal development things. And it sure enough, this day, this pastor said that your next is connected to your now. And I never really understood it, but it stuck out to me. And then years later, as I'm sitting here now and I think about that, I mentioned how I feel like I'm a wordsmith, and how I have a former career as a rapper, whether that's being on stage or whether that's creating music and writing lyrics. I see that now in what I do, whether it's making content and seeing how can I explain something in a way where it comes across not universal, but what's seemingly complex, make it simple. And you said there's false narratives. It's going to tie into another story. You might have heard me mention it before, but most of us know who Michelangelo is. I mean, if you haven't lived under a rock.
I love that. I'm glad you reminded me of this, because where you're about to go with this chiseling thing, it's one thing to hear it. It's another to remember it. It's another to master this concept and like allow it to really impact you. So it's one of those things where every time you hear it, there's like something new you can learn from it. So get it. So
good. So as I was saying, we all know who Michelangelo is, and he's made amazing paintings, sculpting, but the one I want to zero in on is there was this amazing, immaculate sculpture of David, the Bible character David. And there was someone who asked him after they saw it in person how like meticulously detailed it was. They asked Michelangelo, how in the world did you take a hunk of marble, granite, whatever it may be that they use, a big old hunk of rock that's seemingly formless, but just big, giant, weird thing.
Yeah.
And how did you take that? And I picture, even as I say that, and I don't have words for it, I picture that person as they were asking, because they
Right.
saw it beforehand. Like for us, we see it already done. But
True.
this person was walking through and saw
Oh,
something out of nothing.
that's
Anyways, I could go off of that,
huge.
but he looked at Michelangelo and he said, "How in the world did you create a masterpiece out of this?" And he said, "It's simple. I just chiseled away the parts that weren't David." And I feel like so strongly that that's what we live. When we're living out of, like you said, false beliefs, false narratives. There's been stories that somewhere along our line, someone has told you, they might have told you that you're not creative, or you're dumb, or you're slow, and they may have been throwaway statements. They may have not even intentionally hurt you that way.
Yep.
But you'll be surprised how you're looking 20, 30 years down the line and you're living a lesser life because you've saw your whole entire identity through this lens.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot
Red,
of
I went live on Facebook way back. I don't know. It was 2013 or so, probably. I was going live on Facebook, and a friend, right, quote unquote, comes on and says, "When are you going to give up on all this washed up discount Tony Robbins bull crap?"
oh man.
Oh, and I blocked him. I was like, I don't need this in my life. There's other reasons why he did it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I was like, never, but I stopped for years. I stopped. It did have its impact. I wasn't in a position to where I could get over the limiting beliefs and the false narratives. Granted, I still had little kids too, where I wasn't quite ready to be full time on the mic.
For sure. Yeah.
But it had a massive impact that took me some time to figure out, how do you escape this? How do you prepare yourself for the resilience necessary? How do you not allow sentiments like that or feelings like that to take away from who you are? So I can't imagine I'm the only person in the world who let things go for a while and didn't pursue my dreams or my purpose.
Come on. And it's so good. And I love the question you asked too. How do you not let it get to you? Well, obviously, sometimes it's still going to get to you. I'll start by that.
That's right.
Like,
Thank you.
I literally had a comment today. What was it? I posted a short on YouTube, and some random person commented, and they said, YouTube Shorts brought me to a lost leprechaun speaking bollocks. And I'm like, now I can laugh. Yeah, now
I'm laughing with you because you're amazing. That's fun.
Now I can laugh, but previously,
Thank you.
If he would have said that when I was,
that is my lost leprechaun you're talking about here. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, but and I say all that to say is the way that comments like that won't bother you anymore is it's not going to be overnight. And there's still going to be times when you're at your lowest. And I mean, we do. Things are more spiritual than a lot of us think, and there is a prince of darkness out there.
Remember the Titans, Denzel Washington, right? He's facing the coach that tried to get him fired and all the things, and he called him a monkey. And at the halfway point, when he gives him the banana, and it's like he had that strength to embrace it, right? You go buy a leprechaun hat, and embrace it, right? Like when we can honor the realities that. Sometimes that even if they seem like a jab, most of the time they're jabbing at a virtue that we possess. And it's hard to recognize that, but I got to give a huge shout out to another leprechaun, and that's JP Sears. His TED Talk, right? That was a huge, huge impact for me on being able to say, you know what? Long hair. I was like, I'm going to do it. It was my son that inspired it. But JP Sears also kind of gave me permission to be myself. Right, and say, you know what, I don't goofy, heroes in the logo, all this stuff. Like, yeah, I'm gonna do me.
Come on, and I love it. And you made a perfect example of this. Is you found the permission to be you.
Yeah.
Because if we're not careful, so often we'll
So
go and try to fit ourselves into what the world has told us to be when God has created you to be you. Like,
yes.
I can't be Jackson. It would probably be cool in some areas.
Sometimes.
Just like you,
Careful.
just like you couldn't be Red. And like, and when we realize that and we truly tap into the fact of who we are, that's when we begin to truly find fulfillment, find purpose, find calling, and we no longer live that false narrative.
Yes. Oh, it's so huge. Okay, so we're gonna skip to my absolute favorite question.
Okay.
Man, as many times as you want to come back, Red, we gotta have you back.
Definitely.
Oh, this is so cool. This is so good. So uplifting, and for all those listening in, like even if you didn't like understand a single word we said, but the ambiance uplifts you, run with that. Use that energy. So if this was the last chance that you had to share with the world, truly last chance, what powerful lesson kind of the visionaries learned from your experience?
I love that question. There's many different ways I could take it, but I feel like this is, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I feel like it starts with awareness of, so we have strengths and these strengths are great and we need to lean into those strengths. And we have to know that there's a shadow and a dark side to those strengths. Like I love a lot of visionaries are going to be watching this. I feel like the shadow and the dark side of being a visionary is when we start bringing these teams on, we can plow over them because we've got so much vision that we don't think about how much it takes to really execute it. Yes. And I really encourage those other visionaries out there watching is you're not going to see that. I mean, you can see that alone, but that's where that mentoring, that coaching, that community comes in, because we all have blind spots. I love to say it like this: we can't see 360. Like I would love to see my back right now, because I mean, I have a 4-year-old that might have stuck a kick me sticker on my and I'm not gonna know that until either A, people start kicking me, or 2, I have someone to come along and say, "Hey, bud, you got a little sticker, or you got some spinach, some steak in your teeth, or hey, you got your fly down, you're walking around." Goodness, you don't want that, and that's only gonna come when we swallow the pride of thinking we're self-made. And I feel like that's another shadow and dark side of being visionary, because it's very easy for us to get into this little box in this little world where everyone's a yes man, or everyone's saying, you're the greatest, all your ideas are amazing. Yes, you have a ton of amazing ideas and a lot of vision. Some of them aren't great. And I feel like it's so important for us to have that community, have those mentors, have those guides that are not going to be afraid to tell you the kind truth. Again, the packaging is important just as much as what you say to someone. What's the quote? People are going to remember how you made them feel before they hear what you said. And I think that's such an important piece to really bring home, is that powerful lesson of, if you are a leader and you are a visionary, think about the shadow and the dark side of your strengths, but think about it from a lens of the people that or around you, whether it's your employees or those that you're called to serve, and think of how it impacts them. Because it's very, again, like we have such drive, and drive is good. Ambition is good when it's directed in the right way. Don't crush everyone in your way to get to your success.
Right. There's different ways to get to success, is what you're really referring to. And you look at 2 extremely successful leaders, some that we might villainize and some that we might herald. You got Martin Luther King, who led with love. You got Hitler, right, who led with hate. And let's keep the 2 extremes at those individuals. I'm not here to judge either one. I don't have that capacity and power, but they both had extreme strengths. And so we as visionaries don't always, again, perspective's so hard to see. And so we end up taking things one certain way, but it's like, if we argued right now about my thumb and you're arguing about one side, I'm telling you, I see a nail, and you're like, I see a fingerprint. And I'm like, well, you're lying. And I'm not. Like, you can't see both sides. Well, we have a YouTube video. I'll drop it in the resources as well. In fact, it's just a Loom video. I didn't post it to YouTube yet. It's called the 4D perspective. And it talks about the 3D aspect that you're talking about. It talks about God's dimension as well, and how he sees things from across time as well. You can see the past, future, the present, all of that. We have such limited view as human beings that as entrepreneurs, when we take a back seat, when we take a step back and take the humility approach, the confidence to be able to trust that somebody else is going to help, we surround ourselves with great people who can uplift us up. You said coaches, you said mentors. You did not say coach. You did not say mentor. LeBron James is on my wall for a reason.
Yeah.
He doesn't have one coach.
That's right.
I hate when people say, I hate it when they say it. I don't hate them. I feel bad for them when they say, I already have a coach.
Come on.
You know, I'm like, did they control you? Like, what got you to say that to where you felt like they were the God of everything you do? We can't do that I won't do that to myself. I need lots of coaches and mentors, whether it's my children that are coaching me on being a better dad and saying, Dad, that doesn't feel right, you know, or whether it's my ex who says, you know, whatever she has to say about life, or it's somebody that we're paying in a coaching capacity, team members that we're working with. We can do far better when we have people around us who are supportive and who are healthy.
Come on.
Be careful who you bring into your life, though, because not everybody will lead you to your next levels. So, dude, this is awesome. Thank you. You inspired it. I get the color comment. I get the easy part.
Oh, I feel the same way when I'm podcasting and I'm in the other shoes. It's so great. But it's fun. It's fun to be on this side for sure.
Thank you for the free session, Red Wallace. I appreciate this. You know, it's so powerful. So those of you listening in, you'll be able to connect with Red, of course. All the links will be below the show. It says action steps to get connected with Red. And then below that, we'll also have all the resources that we talked about. So you can dive into that deeper level well of resources that have helped us get to where we are. If you feel inspired by that, awesome. Please note too, though, visionaries, you're not going to have the same path and the same journey. You don't have all the same variables that Red and I have. And so your journey and experience is going to be unique. Honor you in the process of leaning on what we might have to offer. And if you're also somebody who wants to share your vision on this show, top right corner, there's a button that says be our guest. Come and talk about it. If you're helping the world out, we want to have you on the show. Red, I'm going to let you close out today. Any final thoughts?
Come on. I would just say, again, I love what you said about the coaches, plural. And I would add in on that being coachable as a part of that. And land the plane a little bit. I also love you mentioned that you had the 4Ds, because as I prepare and release my first book, which you can find that link somewhere, join the waiting list for that. It's called The Red Print, the 5 R's to discover your true identity. And I could go through them real quick, and I would, you know what? I'll go through them real quick. So the 5 R's are, you've got to recognize. So like we mentioned today, you've got to recognize those false narratives, those limited beliefs, those lies that you've been seeing as true when they're not. And then once you've recognized, then you can reorganize, you can shift your thoughts, the way that your mindset aligns with the true freedom that you've been called to. And then that third R is rediscover. Because once you've recognized the lies and you've shifted your thoughts, you then begin to rediscover who God has created and called you to be. And then out of rediscovering, you start rebuilding. And you rebuild on a foundation that's so strong. But it doesn't stop there. Like once you've built the house, then there's that refinement. And I love this piece. It's funny, just to share a little bit of a personal journey before I land the plane, is the refinement piece was one that I came to me, and I feel like the Lord blessed me to see all of the R's. But here recently, I've felt an even more refinement on myself. And I feel like there's this beauty of, as leaders and as visionaries, and I'll land the plane here, is we go first. And I love how you shared personally your story and your journey. And it's out of us choosing to go first in our vulnerability and our authenticity. That's what's going to show those that we lead that it's okay to not put on a front and put on this facade of, oh, I have to be this or that. And when we're able to come to what we do fully ourselves, then we're able to truly live out with full fulfillment and purpose. And I'm really encouraged by what I feel like you listeners, you watchers at home are going to get from this book. And this book is also based on my coaching. So again, if you're wanting something more than just a book, because it's like Jackson said, not everybody's routes are going to look the same. Some people can read a book and catch everything they need, and that's amazing. Yeah. And that's awesome. Some people need a little bit more personalized, tailor-made approach. And that's why I'm offering these one-on-one coaching programs, so that we can really sit down and I can hold that space for you to really walk through each of these five R's and really discover who you're created to be. But not only just keep it in concept, but then take radical action. Because it's the both end. Because if there was a 6R, it would be results. But the results don't come until you do all those other things. Don't happen until the results don't happen until you do that. But I'll close with that what an honor it was to be on your podcast and what you're doing here, and I'd be more than happy to come back sometime.
Love it, guys. If you didn't catch it, didn't hear it, he just gave every single second that he possibly could to us from his heart, his soul, his mind. And as those results come to us, it will allow us to release, restore, resurrect better leaders. Excellent job, Red. Vision Pros, we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision.